Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing what your ex is thinking in September 2022. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing what your ex is thinking in September 2022. So if you have gone through a breakup, it's important to understand your ex's thinking. The pressures of the world around them can be an influence during relationships, breakups, and potential reconciliations. In today's podcast, I'm going to be discussing 3 thoughts likely to cross your ex's mind during September 2022 and how this can affect your chances of getting back together. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is money worries. Now in September 2022, most countries are heading into difficult financial times, quite possibly into recessions. Now what might this mean for your ex? Well, we have to consider what people do and how they behave during recessions, during times when money is tight. And of course, we don't know specifically every individual person's thoughts, but when we generalize, what we can say is that people are often a lot more careful about how they are spending their money. So for instance, this might mean that your ex is less likely to spend excess money and potentially be spending more time at home. Now, I know a lot of you dumpees are worried about your ex going out into the world, doing lots of different things, and potentially finding somebody that they connect with long term and never want to reconsider getting back with you. Now, firstly, I'd like to say that that is unlikely. Even if your ex is going out living their life, this is unlikely to be a situation where in the short or even medium term that they find somebody where they don't want to consider you as a possible reconnection. And this is because it's very hard to find long-term compatible partners. If you or your ex was to get into a new relationship soon after your breakup, within a few months of your breakup taking place, this would likely be a rebound relationship. And if you want to learn more about rebound relationships, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, ring the bell for notifications, and check out all of the podcasts I have done on rebound relationships. But just going over things very briefly right now, a major red flag of a rebound relationship is that it starts soon after a breakup takes place. And the ultimate end of a rebound relationship is it exploding, you might say, as quickly as it started. Often rebound relationships will end within a matter of months. So if you are worried about your ex going out into the world, meeting new people and forgetting about you, this is very unlikely. Short to medium term, anybody they might meet is very unlikely to be long-term compatible. And even if they do date somebody, as hard as that might be for you to imagine, it's likely to only be temporary, at which point they will have to, at some stage, consider their past, look in the mirror and understand where they've come from, how they have got here, and whether or not it was the right decision. But I digress. I'm talking about money worries. I'm talking about September 2022. And the likelihood is that your ex will not be going out into the world doing all of these various different things because they're probably going to be saving their money. The holiday season is around the corner. Most people are buying presents. Most people are doing things in a couple of months' time, 2, 3, 4 months' time that they're going to need money for. And hence now in September 2022, they're probably going to be spending a lot more time at home, watching their budget and making sure they don't go overdrawn. This might even mean that they don't use online dating platforms, or certainly not the ones which cost money to be involved with. So how might this affect you as an ex if you're thinking about trying to reconnect with your now previous partner? Well, for a start, you can remove that worry that they are going to be out into the world living all of these things that you were scared of. As I said, this isn't necessarily going to be as bad as you feared anyway, but you can remove these thoughts for the most part. Of course, we can't guarantee your ex will fall into this category, but I would say most people are going to be spending a lot more time at home than normal during a September. I would say it's most likely that people are going to be really considering their budgets, spending more time at home, and who knows, this might mean they have more opportunity to think about their past, to think about you, and to maybe even reach out to you sooner than would have happened. If somebody's sitting at home with not much to do, then all they can really do is consider their own life, their past, and remember what they've done throughout the previous months and year. And if you appear in their mind, this is when they may reach out to you. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about what your ex is thinking in September 2022. And point number 2 is single honeymoon period extension. So the single honeymoon period is the period of time after a breakup where somebody will live their own life. You know, when somebody enters a relationship, when somebody becomes a dumper, they have not felt fulfilled in the relationship that they have ended, and they will want to go on their own journey, their own path. Now, this often lasts around 6 months, but it can sometimes go on as long as a year. And one of the main factors as for why this may be extended is the timing of how the breakup took place. So if you are a dumpee and you are thinking about your ex and you are wondering, when are they going to be reconsidering things in a general sense, you know, excluding what we said in point number 1, if somebody is still moving their life forward, whether or not they're spending money doing it, whether they can do their own thing without spending the cash and they're still pushing forward, if you're worried as a dumpee that your ex, the dumper, is doing this and you think, well, the average time is 6 months, 6 months, that's going to come up in maybe September, October. The news I have to bring you is not something you probably wanted to hear. And that is that this time of year, you are likely to see an extension. And this is because of the holiday season. So when we think of a honeymoon period, you know, normally this lasts around 6 months, but often it will extend the length of time if the end coincides with the back end of the year. And like I just said, it's because it connects with the holiday season. If you think of all the potential holidays that you and your ex may like to celebrate, this may be Thanksgiving, it may be Christmas, it may be New Year's Eve, it may be more niche holidays, such as in the UK, we have bonfire night, etc., etc. There could be lots of other ones depending on where you live in the world. What we have to understand is that when these events are coming thick and fast, people often have more events to go to, more parties, more celebrations, and these things can really push and extend the honeymoon period longer. So if you've been thinking to yourself, well, my breakup took place in March time, maybe my ex is now coming out of a single honeymoon period, now we're in to September, what I have to say to you is that unfortunately, statistically speaking from my own research, there is an increased chance that your ex's single honeymoon period will be extended longer than the average 6 months and will probably extend throughout the holiday season and into January, probably concluding after New Year's Eve into the January period. And this is when you may find out that your ex is starting to really reconsider their life coinciding with January. We do self-reflect a lot around New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. It's all about what we've done in the past year. So you might find, for instance, that your ex's single honeymoon period goes throughout the back end of the year, and it may be longer before they reconsider the situation. Now, bear in mind, this is not a guarantee that your ex will contact you. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back or to hear from your ex again. This is from the research I've done for most likely situations that arise if, as a dumpee, you do everything right to increase the chance of your success. If you want to learn more about this and if you want specific help with your unique situation and problem, you may want to consider my audio coaching service where me and you can speak one-on-one. Check out my website www.dateme.tips to find out more details about my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about what your ex is thinking in September 2022. And point number 3 is, are pandemic restrictions coming, going, or staying? So depending where you live in the world will dictate the level of pandemic restrictions still in place. For lots of places around the world, these restrictions have almost gone entirely, but there are places where restrictions still exist and maybe even quite severe. Now, you need to be considering how your ex dealt with the last few years. How did the country you live in deal with the last few years? Consider how your ex reacted to previous restrictions to really get in your mind how they may be feeling as we move into the back end of the year. Now, if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're thinking, well, what's the problem? We're moving into summer. Respiratory problems are a lot less during the summer months, and that is absolutely true. This probably isn't aimed at you if you're living in the southern hemisphere, but most of the world lives in the northern hemisphere. Most of the world is moving into winter. We're currently approaching autumn or fall, you may call it. And this is where the weather turns and respiratory problems, unfortunately, do start to increase. So it's very possible. But your ex may be wondering, depending on how they've lived the last few years, they may be wondering, what's going to happen as we move into winter? Are restrictions going to come? Are they going to return? Are they still here? Are they going to go away forever? These types of things can cloud people's minds, and depending on how your ex feels, there could be a level of anxiety. Now, if your ex is feeling anxious, there is an opportunity and possibility that they may be reaching out to people to get their take on things and also to check up on how people are feeling. During the original lockdowns, there was an increase in people reaching out to their exes, checking they were okay. And this could potentially happen again. We obviously don't know what's coming, and even if something happens in your country, it might not be the same as in a country very nearby. So everywhere's going to be different. Every situation is going to be unique. But there is an opportunity and a possibility that your ex may be reaching out to people asking about these types of questions, and you may be the person that they reach out to. If they do so, I suggest you keep things on topic. This is certainly not a time to start trying to flirt. If somebody messages you a serious question or asks how you are, keep things on point. Talk to them about the topic they bring up, but try and grow the conversation with your own questions, but making sure not to get too heavy, making sure not to quiz them about their relationships and their dating life. Don't bring up your breakup unless they do. If you hear from your ex for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be to do with restrictions, as I've just suggested. It could be for any other possible reason. This is where you're entering the communication stage, and I would say it's an exciting but tricky time. Again, if you want help with the communication stage, you may want to speak with me one-on-one. Check out my audio coaching on my website, www.dateme.tips. Just remember, though, don't bring up relationships, breakups, or dating in any initial conversations. Only if they mention it should you be speaking on those topics. Just speak about what they bring up, ask your own questions, but keep things happy, carefree, and fun, and be as supportive as you can and you want to be. If you receive contact from your ex and you're not happy about it, you don't like what they're saying, and you don't feel that they deserve to have your input on something, then of course you don't have to respond. But what I would always say is, if you want to get your ex back, then forgiveness is important from both sides. And whether or not you really feel like your ex deserves to have a conversation with you, if you actually want them back in the back of your mind, you should respond. Ignoring your ex will never help, and I believe that whatever they have said is worthy of some level of response, even if it's small. Always remember that with or without your ex, you will have a positive future. Push forward with your life and live with excitement for your future, because I believe in you and you should believe in yourself as well. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.